Hi guys, Natalie here, Only One United. We're here for a big debate, really. Two other fans, Thani and Mina, and we're just here to talk about the big topic around Man United at the minute, and obviously that's new owners. We've obviously had the soft deadline, we've had two public statements, then we had a statement saying to everyone to keep quiet, but we're just going to talk about these two public ones and then maybe who else there might be or whatever other outcomes that could be, and how it really, I think we've heard a lot about how it's going to affect the men's side, and we can talk about that as well, but not a lot of people are talking about the women and the investment in that and how it will look with these two people. So I'm just going to come to Atano. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks, mate, for having me.
No worries. And the new guest, Mina Football. Thank you for coming on. Really appreciate it.
Pleasure. It's a pleasure. Thanks for having me, guys.
No worries. So I just want to get into it, I suppose, straight away from the off. The two bids. Obviously, Qatar came out straight away. They talked about investing, having the 92 fund, which he's a banker. He says he's separate from QIA, which is PSG. He's running the Bank of Qatar. I forget his name, but he's, a lot of people are saying it's still Qatar money and it's all come through, and a lot of them are linked, and obviously there are those concerns. But he did mention investing in the women's team, investing in the infrastructure, investing in the stadium, investing in the academy, being a Man United fan from young. Thani, what did you think sort of when you heard the statement and you hear obviously Qatar coming in?
Yeah, honestly, I've had my reservations about Qatar. I won't lie, but right now they have the money. Where relatively, I think they'll be able to sustainably invest into the club rather than Sir Jim Ratcliffe. So I'm fine with anyone coming in as long as the debt is taken care of. And it was nice to see that they mentioned women's team because often I think under Glazers as well, when they came in, they stopped the women's team, so we had to reform in 2018. So it's always been like they've reinstated the women's team just for the sake of it, just because the other clubs are doing. And right now as well, we aren't getting renewals, for example, and the men's team are getting renewals. I'm not saying the men's team shouldn't get renewals, but at the same time, women's team players, some of our key players are getting their contracts ended in the summer. So with that respect, I would say that we've always been the secondary team. It's not equality. So hopefully, when the new owner comes in, whosoever it is, they have to pay attention, and they should mention it in their manifesto as well. So hopefully, things change when new owner comes in.
Mina, obviously Qatar, they mentioned it like Ratanu said, and what did you think of their overall proposal? And obviously, that mention of the women's team, for me, it was important to hear that they're mentioned. Obviously the men's team, we want to get back to where we are, we want the facilities, and that sort of links into the women's as well. We know that there was issues with the women's facilities, so any improvement on facilities is good for the women's team if they're going to do that. But the fact that they did mention we're going to invest in the men's and the women's, what did you think when that statement came out?
I think that specific line sets them apart from any other bidders that might come through because they've been clear with their intentions. When you look at this season, we've got about 14 players that have contracts either ending at the end of the season that can't be renewed, or has got 1 year, can be triggered, or they're going back to where we've loaned them from. That's 14 players from our senior team. Even in the men's team, if you talk about contract renewals, there's a lot of talks about things ongoing. And if you're familiar with like David De Gea, he's willing to take a pay cut. Marcus Rashford is looking for extended contract with more money, which the club have said they're in the process of negotiating. Then you see on the women's side, there's not really much work, where players who have their contracts ending, important players who have their contracts ending this summer, are being lowballed. That's important players. You wouldn't see that in men's senior football, and I understand how different it is. But even if you look at the Deloitte Money League report that came out last month, Manchester United Women's was second in that table in terms of revenue that they generate. Although it's not a big amount, €6 million, it's not a big amount in comparison to men's football. That is a big amount in women's football when the club is able to garner revenue through match day and sponsorships and whatnot. And I think it's only Barcelona that was above them by about $1 million and a bit, and then it was City that was below them. So off the pitch, the women's team are able to produce the revenue needed to run the club on a day-to-day basis, but they do need support from the owners in terms of developing the team, paying the players what they deserve. We could have lost Alicia Russo in the summer, in January, and now we actually lose her in the summer instead because there's been slow talk of negotiations. You've got players in the men's team that barely play that are paid more than what the women make on an annual basis. They make it probably in a month. Women's football still has a long way to go in terms of payment equality. But when you're looking at specifically the bids that have come through for Manchester United, Sir Jim Ratcliffe only stated his goal was to help the men's win the Champions League. And you'll look at that and think, okay, well, what about the academy? What about the women's team? What about the facilities? What about developing the city and the neighborhood of where the stadium is located at? So on paper, Qatar's statement seems like the more intriguing one, but in practicality, I think it might be a different story. But I do think that whoever comes through with the bids, whoever's interested in buying the team, they need to be transparent with what their plans are throughout the entire Manchester board, from the men's team to the women's team to the academy.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, like you're saying, Jim, that was his sort of one downfall, and I think they later clarified it that that is a place through articles and all this kind of thing. But I think it was important that that's your first statement, and it was a slight concern. It got me concerned, that I didn't see the women, and just talking about the Champions League. Why shouldn't the women go and win the Champions League as well? A trophy in Europe from any Man United team would be good right now. So yeah, it was concerning. And for me, you've touched on something, and I can see RJ bringing it up. RC, sorry, we can't pay Honor a good wage. That is a report that's come out, and I think it is worrying that, like you said, about the lowballing, and it's taking a long time. Do you think, I suppose Mina or Thani jump in, Mina, what do you think about sort of, I suppose, the structure? Because we're talking about they are making money, they can get commercial deals, they're getting, we know Man United, when they come to any stadium, they're filling out, the away ends are filling out, when we're filling up, like most of Old Trafford, I know it's not all of it, but they're putting the prices up when we're going to Old Trafford. So the money is there, commercial deals are there, but they're still doing this, taking a long time. Whereas with, like you say, with Rashford, with Garnacho, it's bang, bang, bang. It's, they seem to be more proactive with it, whereas it's very reactive with the women. Do you feel like that's somewhere, when we talk about investment, yeah, we want more money, but things like that is investment in it, and I suppose care. And I suppose that's what some people could say about Qatar. They're just saying it as a surface, women, if you really look at women in their country, you could say they're maybe not treated the best. So, I mean, I suppose for both, but Mina, what do you think? Because for me, investment is investment in your soul, I suppose, as well, not just investment in the money. What do you think?
It's interesting. I think a lot of the issues that stem in the women's team right now, it comes from the current ownership. I think it comes from the Glazers. When you look at the men's team, and I don't like to compare it because it's really, they're quite very different. But when you look at the men's team, they've always been known to have a poor wage structure in terms of young players will come in and earn immediately 200, 250 a week. And that's because of, the commercialization of men's football and how the Glazers pretty much see the men's team in terms of a business structure. You look at Jadon Sancho, who came in as a 21-year-old earning 300K a week immediately, which is actually unheard of. I think Sam Kerr earns 400K in a year, and he's earning 300K in a week. And a lot of criticisms that the fans of the men's team had was that we were paying the men way too much for what they were doing on the pitch. And you would think, well, in a season like now, when I think we're approaching a very important time of the season where we're very much in a title race, very much competing for a Champions League spot, still in the FA Cup, You would think that people like Alicia Russo would have a contract extension tied down immediately. You wouldn't. Marcus Rashford, for example, is approaching the end of his contract with a 12-month trigger option, and they're already looking at to renew his contract because they know how important he is for the men's team. You would think that would be similarly applicable to the women's side, but I generally do not think the issue is money. I think it's about negligence. I think it's about care. I don't think the current owners, really see much value in the women's team in terms of it bringing in a lot of sponsorship opportunities, revenue opportunities. Even though we revenue-wise we earn second most in the top five European leagues. You look at Chelsea and Arsenal, who have been quite like when I was growing up, Arsenal was the top of women's football. And I hated it because Manchester United were pretty much non-existent then. So I just used to watch them just for fun. And same with Chelsea. They've had investments from their ownerships into the women's football because they've been at the top for so long. In order for us to get to the top, we can't get there without support from the ownership. And it has to be, the negligence has to go, whether it's Jim Ratcliffe, whether it's, Qatar that decide to take over. An option of the Glazers staying through funding from Elliott Investment Management is just not an option because they will not put that in to the women's team. And I really hope that, the worldwide fan base acknowledge that, because I know everybody wants the Glazers out, because it's not only just for the men's team. I genuinely don't think they actually care about the women's team because, like I said, when it comes to contract renewal, they very much would have seen, your best player might get poached in January and you don't think to give her a new contract and pay her what she's valued at before she leaves, possibly in the summer. To me, that's just pure negligence.
100%. And I think it's something that, Etano before Casey Stoney left, and you would have thought it would have kicked them into gear. And, everything that she brought up, yeah, they said they've changed, but we're still waiting. Polly Brencroft took a year for them to announce her as the head of women's football. And then now it's, she said, we've agreed that we're going to invest in the training ground, but we're still waiting to, I suppose, see it. And I do agree, it is that negligence from the Glazers. And, I think it's negligence across the whole club. But unfortunately, I think because, like what Mina says, women's football isn't bringing in the money that the men's does. They can't, the profits are just second, not even worth looking at if you look at sort of the men's profits. But then obviously, are you concerned, I suppose, with, I'd say Qatar, they would invest, but is that, like I say, that care, do you think they would put that in just because of what we do know, about sort of records in the country? And I don't want to start going down that road, but I just, it's quite well reported, isn't it? So, what do you think, Atano?
I think Meena also mentioned this, that Ratcliffe didn't mention the women's team in his statement, I think. And the Qatar, I think, I don't know the name, so I will not butcher it. So the Qatar statement that came out did mention women's team. So from that aspect only, we can see that, okay, women's team is on their minds. And overall, I'd say that this issue of Qatar, I also don't want to go down that road, but it's to some extent it's the same with Sir Jim Ratcliffe as well, because in yours, when they took over, that's French club, I think it's I don't remember the name.
Nice, yeah.
Nice. Yeah, Nice. So ever since they have taken over that club, there has been a stagnation in their performances. Like, a lot of managers have come in, they've been sacked. The sporting director has been removed. So they are going a huge overhaul every 6 months, every 8 months. So with that aspect as well, I would say that you cannot be so sure of SJR as well. And regarding Qatar, I'd say recently Newcastle United were taken over by Saudi Arabia, I feel. So they've been doing good in their women's section of the game, because I think they're second in their FAWNL, and there have been good attendances as well, because they have been, you know, looking at it with an investment and then return on investment. So the ROI of women's football right now is very high, but for ROI to happen, you need to have that I, and with Glazers, that I won't happen. they will never inject cash into the club. So that is my main thing, that we need to get rid of Glazers first of all, and then get rid of the debt. So those two are my main things right now, and I know that whosoever comes in this environment, they will invest into the women's team, and if they don't, there will be a lot of outcry from the fans side as well. So right now, what is happening? We are seeing that the men's hardcore fan base, who are not that into women's football, they are also advocating for women's football. They are also advocating and saying that women's team should also be taken care of. It's not just about the men's team. So that only tells you how united we are as a fan base right now. There have been differences in the past, but right now we all want to get rid of Glazers.
Yeah, for me, definitely. I think Glazers being out. I mean, let's just touch on it. There is this talk of little investment consortiums from America. Elliot, I know, is one. I think there's you said it, writers. Did you say before? Thani was the other. I think there's like
There's this
Coventry,
Aries Management Corporation.
Aries.
Yeah, they were trying to financially back a bit, but
Yeah.
whosoever they were trying to get into it, they've rejected it. I don't know who's, they haven't made it official who they were trying to back. But yes, there are a few investment banks who are trying to
Yeah.
get into consortiums and everything.
But I think anything like that, in my opinion, I just feel, and this is not to discredit this whole country, but I just feel we've had American owners, and I just feel like because it's not really worked out well. Even Chelsea, I think Todd Bowley is okay, but he's sort of, you could say it's sort of maybe a scattergun approach. I do think these two, Jim and Qatar, are the ones that I think most fans are behind fully. Over, I mean, we don't know. We know that there's probably going to be more than just Jim and Qatar, but what people don't want is the Glazers staying at all in any form, because, like you said, they don't invest in the men's team, never mind the women's team, and then like we just talked about negligence. Vicky's just here in the comments saying Qatar, they invest in the women's team. Lanzel's saying Qatar would abide by English laws. The earnings on €400 a year. I mean, what do you think, Mina? Do you think, because I've read things as well that the budgets have already set, so no matter who comes in, they won't be able to just say splash that money, or do you think no, they would? Because like you're saying, Alessia, Honor, these are not small players, these are major players. I mean, we're talking about, Rashford and they making sure that they're going to pay him more, and I just feel like a lot of that needs to come to the women, because for me, like you're saying, Alessia, Honor, these are, we're talking about Honor on like 6 or 7 assists, as a fullback, the highest number of assists in the WSL, and she's smashing it. Alessia smashing it in the Euros in England, in Manchester, and we know just in terms of like commercial as well, she will be bringing in a lot. So, I mean, what do you think, in suppose, in terms of that? Because just tell us your thoughts.
I think I don't think the budget for next season would be set yet, because the financial year runs from July to June in the football world. So everything up until June 30th would be up until their salaries until that's the season, and hopefully by the time the new financial year starts, it's in line with when the pre-season starts, and that's when the new contract would commence if they were to offer her a new contract. But the difficult thing would be that with new owners coming in, I'm pretty sure that they would want to analyze everything before they make decisions. We have a head of women's football development. She would have to sit down with whoever to discuss who would stay, who would not stay. But for me, as someone who obviously works in the industry, it's kind of I think it's a two-man race in terms of the ownership, and a lot of fans feel like the Qatar. First, I think we have to differentiate. It's not Qatar as a state that are bidding. It's Sheikh Jassim bin Hamad Al Thani, who is the chairman of the Qatari Islamic Bank. The difficult thing with that is the fact that the major shareholders of the Islamic Bank in Qatar is the investment authority and the sports investment who run PSG. So they have to be able to differentiate the fact that they are not operating together. Otherwise, there'll be a cause for concern there. If you look at what they've done with the PSG women's team, PSG are probably one of the best in the French league. They are top in terms of development, and they have a lot of talent coming out of France. PSG are able to retain, similar to how they develop a lot of the French players in the men's team, quite similar with the women's, because I went to Paris one time, and there's a place just outside of Paris where they are some of the best footballers growing up there, and they have scouts all across the country just picking people out. You look at our academy teams, the women's academy teams. I recently saw that I think it was the under 16 or the under 18 team won.
Under 16 and under 14.
Team.
Yeah.
Under the Glazers, I guarantee you, none of them would probably even end up going through to the senior women's team, because there would just be that negligence surrounding the owners and in terms of their involvement in the women's team. Now everybody sees women's football as a commodity, that they want to be involved in it. You saw the Lionesses winning the Euros, and now they're selling out stadiums. Everyone is now going to watch their teams. They're playing more regularly in the major stadium that's owned by the men's team. And now whatever owner comes in will probably look at it and be like, women's football is the next big thing. It's really the next big thing. And if you don't have a team that's competing at a high level, then what's the point of having that team? It took us some time to come back up after the Glazers, the kind of disarmed the women's team. But now I feel like this season, with it being our best opportunity to qualify for Champions League, we can't go into the Champions. I'm not getting ahead of myself, but we can't go into the Champions League next season with a weaker team. It doesn't make sense. And you look at someone like Anna, who wants to stay. To me, it seems like she wants to stay. To the people that I've spoken to surrounding the issue, it seems like she wants to stay. But it seems like because everybody's so caught up in the potential takeover, that the priorities are very much men's academy, women. And it's sad, because as a result of that, we could possibly lose two of our best players. When Arsenal wanted to pinch Alicia in January, I thought that there was a chance they might accept the bid. I personally did. I did think there was a chance that, because I thought, well, if she hasn't extended her contract yet, maybe it's because she doesn't want to stay. But then I realized maybe they are planning for her to stay. It's just talks are just taking a bit of time. The manager doesn't seem to give away a lot in the press conferences. He's quite kind of like on it. He doesn't really want to talk about it. But I definitely feel like if we're going to compete at top level, we're going to come across the Lyons and the Barcelonas and whatnot in the Champions League, we have to develop a very strong team, and we can't do that by losing two of our best players.
I thought Leslie was gone. I thought she was gone based on the fact that, like what you're saying, the negligence of it. Do they care enough? Do they care enough to keep her? Like you're saying, she's on 6 months. She can go for free. Do they care enough to keep her, or do they want to bring that money in to use it for next year? So I think the fact that they did reject it, because we've seen with, you're saying, with selling Jackie, the way that they did sell her, it was very strange, the way they sold after the window was closed and all this kind of thing. So I was worried, when they were talking about that, because I thought, $500,000 is a lot of money. That could run the club for however many. But I suppose then that does show for me, not that the Glazers, but maybe the Glazers are thinking about, we're out of it and we want to make it as attractive as possible. Because for me, selling Russo, if we had done it, it would have run the women's team, but it would have set a bad example, and people wouldn't have, potentially Anna would want to go then because, you're not ambitious. Mary would want to go. These kind of things, players that you're bringing in, you showing the world really that you're not committed to your women's team, and, any players available kind of thing. So I think definitely rejecting it did show something, but, like you're saying, I agree with what Mina's saying, and you come in, Thani, you would have thought straight away after that, bang, couple, if someone had bidded for Bruno or Rashford, within a couple of weeks, that it would be the contract. That's because PSG have been asking over Rashford. So that's why you're hearing this talk hamping up about him. We've heard Spanish teams are after Garnacho, and you're hearing this talk ramping up about he's agreed a deal. But we've rejected this bid for Lessie, and we've not. And women's football is probably harder to hear. We know with Man United they like to keep things quiet. We didn't know Maya was joining. Next minute she's here. So Thani, just your thoughts. And I know it's just sort of going into the Glazers ownership, but when these things do happen, what do you think?
Yeah, like today, either you or Mina also mentioned that with United, it's always about being reactive rather than being proactive. So, like we've always known that Ona's contract will end. She will join Barcelona, and Alessia Russo's contract is going to end. But we didn't do anything about it. We lowballed the offer before Euros. So obviously she was going to reject it because after the Euros she knew that her value will skyrocket, which it did. But then again, we were so like we were negligent to the fact that her contract is ending. Why weren't we, why wasn't it the first priority? I look at it and like I see Mariups's contract. I think it has a 1 year clause in it, and we extended Ella Toon's contract. Like before that, I'm not saying don't give her like I think she was given a salary hike, but I'm not saying don't give her a salary hike. But before that, there are players whose contract is going to end, who are your key players, and around whom you need to create your future teams. And it's just sad that we are 3-4 months away from the season ending, WSL season ending, and we still haven't done anything. And I think there's a rule that in the last 6 months in the WSL, if any player's contract is ending, the foreign clubs can directly talk to them. So, like, we all know Russo won't join Arsenal or Chelsea. Like, this is something that I feel she won't do because she's a fan. But she has the tools and resources to do well at a club like Lyon. So why wouldn't they talk to her? And we also saw with the Athletic report about Ona that many clubs like Barcelona, but like we all know, Barcelona is one of the best clubs who will try to poach Ona away from us. But there's this thing that everybody is saying that she's happy. Like even in today's press conference, Mark said that she's quite happy. But why aren't we doing anything about it? And it just shows that how like I mentioned, women's team are always an afterthought for United right now. They've made huge strides, they've made huge investment into the team, I'm not going to deny that. But still, relatively, when you look at it, between men's team and women's team, like you mentioned, Garnacho is going to get a new contract, Rashford's going to get a new contract. There have been positive talks, but with United, every time the news comes out, it's that the player has rejected the contract offer. The offer isn't enticing enough. How is Una Bhatti the lowest earner in the team? I get it. Initially, when she joined, she like there was a lot of hype, but still she hadn't performed up to that level. But after 2 3 like after 2 seasons, she would have gotten a salary hike. That's what I thought. Like with Tooney as well, after Euro, she's been doing really well. So she got an extension on her contract, even though she signed a contract last year only when Skinner came in. I think Ella Toon's contract was the first one. Then Carrie Jones signed a new contract. Tara Bones signed a new contract. So these were the three first contracts that were signed under Skinner. And I don't know why we all think that why we haven't signed, why are we lowballing? Is there not enough allocation of budget? And that's why I think getting only Poly into the system isn't going to work. We need more people as well. I've always thought that you need to have a different structure for the women's team, because we look at Barcelona, like they are the best women's team club in my opinion in Europe basically. So they have their own different structure, as far as I know. So you need to have a different structure, and with United being such a big club, the focus is always on the men's team and the whole department. For example, John Murto, Andy, like his deputy as well. So they all will be focused more towards the men's team, and I'm not trying to embarrass them and just trying to blackmail them that why are you focusing only on the men's team, but the women's team also has to be a priority.
Yeah.
And we also like I don't remember the name now. Before Polly, there was this guy Steve Deville, who was a finance guy who was acting as the general manager. And we also how badly United were doing with regards to the women's team contracts and the whole situation that happened with Casey. We made amends to it. We brought in Polly, which took about a year. So now the next step has to be to have a different structure altogether. That's my opinion. Of course, if United thinks that it's sustainable to have a common structure with one or two people focusing on women's team, that's fine. But we need to see results. You just walk the walk, but you don't talk the talk. Like you, sorry, talk the talk, but you don't walk the walk. So
Yeah.
that's
No,
that's the thing that's bothering me.
I agree. I mean, sporting up sport phase, they're not miracle workers. If the owners don't want to invest, they won't. But I do agree. I feel like, I mean, Lanzel's saying here, hopefully we can get new owners. It's not too late. And, we have said it, haven't we? I do think it is important that it's the structure as well change. And, we're talking about negligence and stuff about the Glazers. That's why we don't want like the Elliots and all these kind of funds to come in and keep them there, but there is that worry that that's what they want to do. Foot Firm saying he thinks Honor will stay, but it's been poorly managed. Yeah, it has done. I mean, I know we're sort of going off topic and we're talking about sort of players, but that's what it's about. And evening, Deb, you okay? I mean, you want to follow up on what Atanu said, Mina, and just what he's
No,
saying?
I agree
People
with
are
him.
saying, is Polly good enough? And I don't feel like it's just her. I feel like it's more than her. She needs maybe support as well.
Yeah. I think this all goes down to the ownership. I know it sounds like we sound like broken records at this point, but I do think a lot of the issues stem from the ownership, and that's why I do hope the club is sold within time. I hope that there's it's sold within the next 2 months, maybe up to April, because it would allow both the men and the women's team to kind of prepare for the next season. With Russo's contract, she's hot property. I don't think there's a club in Europe that wouldn't take her, that wouldn't have her. I wouldn't be surprised if she's probably got options on the table, and she's just waiting for something from Manchester United. And the way that I see it is, you pay players their value, their worth. If a player is important to your starting 11, especially with a manager that doesn't really rotate often, so if they're important to the starting 11, then clearly they've got some value in the team and they should be paid what rightly they deserve. I think the issue is bigger than Polly, and I genuinely feel like I'm worried that we might go into next season with two players lighter in terms of the level of players that we currently have. That's a scary thought to think of, and all of that would be because of a contract renewal. With the men's team in the past, there was similar issues to this where players were being lowballed, but they were already on high salaries. So I don't feel bad. I don't feel bad for them because they were already earning a lot of money, and they just wanted more. It was kind of more like greed. Whereas at the moment, it's like players are not earning that much, and they just want to be paid something that they deem as a good value for what they bring to the table, and that's not happening. Whatever owners come in, like I said, the Glazers staying and having a fund management from an investment firm is not an option, because the problem is not about the money. We know that the money is in the club. Manchester United is one of the biggest clubs in the world. They generate one of the biggest revenues, probably after City. Well, what City claim to generate, and then other teams like Real Madrid. It's only Manchester United after them, with all of the money that they generate. And I've even seen with Arsenal's financial reports, they get a lot of funding from their parent club, which is normal. Anyone in business would know that, if you've got a company and they own multiple different companies, they always funnel funds through to support them financially. And it's something that the club just has not done. The owners have just not done. I see people talking about ticket prices. I do think women's football tickets are cheap. And I feel like over time they will definitely get more expensive the more they start to sell out stadiums. I think you could just look at the national team, for example, and they've sold out Brentford for a game. in a few months' time. So I think as time goes on, they will definitely hike up prices. But also, I think sponsorship. I think the women's team should be allowed to have sponsorships, because it seems like obviously Team Viewer and all the sponsorships that sponsor the club, but the women's team should be maybe allowed to have their own sponsorships outside of that, where there's someone different sponsoring the training kits, whether it's someone different sponsoring, sponsoring the away kits or whatever. They should have that opportunity to do that, because they have different target markets. So I don't know. That's one thought of generating for me.
No, you are spot on. I just want to say in terms of that, it's spot on, because in terms of the tickets that people are saying, they have increased the tickets to Old Trafford. I think they are £20, and I think they were 10 before. So, we're seeing that increase. But in terms of sponsorships, this is where I suppose, I know we're going back over, but when the women first were created, it was sort of agreed that it would be joint sponsors. So like you say, you see the Team Viewer is both men and women. And I think that is good. Yeah, you should have both men and women. But like you said, there should be some that we see in Barca. I think that's why Barca, here you go, I've gone wrong. Up £10, but they've gone from £6 to £10. So at least it's that little increase. And I know it, £4, it isn't like massive.
It makes a big difference when you tally it up.
Yeah, if you have 30,000 people, then they're all paying £10 compared to £6. You'll see the difference. But I think I read somewhere else it was £20. Maybe that was a box. I won't be in a box anyway. But when you see, the joint thing, I think that's good, because I think it'll great. When you see Mary and Rashford standing next to each other on an advert and stuff, I think it's good. Yeah, we want that. We want joint posts. We want joint promotion. But like you said, having a different sponsor for our training kit, it's not going to make a difference. But then someone will want that. Someone will look at Mary wearing a different one to Rashford, and I want one that Mary wears. I want that kit. I want the kit with the badges. Because these people are, we know that fans love the players. I think if you go to LSV, if you go to United games, in the men's stadium, anywhere, you always see your Anna Batcher, you always see your Tuna, your Alessia. So if you see it with a different sponsor, I want this one. And, Barca are top, I think, because of that. They have separate sponsors, and I think it's something that we need to push forward on. Definitely, I think it's something that we can attract Manchester United. And I feel like the more we're in the Champions League, the better players that we do have and retain, then we will be able to attract that. I mean, we know that it's on Sky telling now, women's football, and people can watch it, but that deal's getting renewed, and we know that it's going to be even more. So all these things are coming at this point now, and I think it is important for us to have those owners that are going to, like I said, it's all right having the money, but it's about having everything around it as well. And, we need the facilities, we need the support staff. Like you're saying, it needs to be more than, like Thani was saying, needs to be more than Polly, needs to be everyone, and I think potentially having their own team, and maybe just sitting alongside as equals, not Polly reporting to John, Polly reporting to the owner and things like that. That's
a big part, because John Murtogh is like the director of Manchester United, whatever. I think he works a lot more with them, like his focus, because it's predominantly the men's team. That's where most of his attention will always go to. I think whoever runs the development of the women's team should report directly to the owners, or directly to the chairman, whoever is responsible for the club. I don't think there shouldn't be a middleman between them, because then things will get lost in translation and whatnot. You have to hold the two teams on the same scale, basically. Yeah. So whatever the men's team have, the women's team should have too. I know obviously, like, they're not in terms of revenue generating as big, but even with the sponsorship, I guarantee you that even though it's a joint sponsorship, the same percentage does not go to the men's team that goes to the women's team. I guarantee for a fact. Team View, I think, have a 45 million a year sponsorship with Manchester United, and I know for a fact whatever percentage, whether it's 20 or 30% that of the men's team, that same percentage does not go to the women's team, which is why I support that idea of having a separate sponsorship for the women's team, because I just feel like it's only right.
No, I think it is. I just want to touch on something, I suppose, that we have said about, his running of Nice maybe isn't the best, Jim. But one thing that did attract me to Sir Jim's proposal was the talk of fan ownership and fan being at the heart of it. And I'm not saying that they wouldn't be at the heart of it with Qatar, but he sort of, I don't know how I can say, made it more tangible in his statement. And I mean, for me, fans, we've seen Glazers talk about this fans board, and we know that they've got lots of different supporters groups. There's the women's supporters club. But yeah, and then obviously there's there's the 1958, all these kind of things. But I mean, I suppose what Jim then wants to do is bring it all together. And I mean, how do you feel about that, Atano? So about, fans having the voice, fans being at the heart of it, because like you said, I do think Qatar will do that as well. But obviously, Jim did push that and made it about not just, I know it's bigger than Manchester, but, putting that Manchester, that's what his statement, back in Man United. So I suppose, what did you think about that?
Yeah, I think with United specifically, I'd say fans play a big part, and I think this fans forum idea of having a fans having a fans forum every few months, I don't think that addresses the issue of fans raising their voice to the club. We need to be more frequent about raising our opinions and asking some questions, and we can look at it from the women's side only, like fans forum are every, like, I don't know what's the gap between fans forum, but I think it's around 1 month or 6 weeks. So the issues that are accumulating aren't being addressed, and United have a history of having a backlog of issues. So with that respect as well, I'd say that it's very important for fans to have some kind of a responsibility towards the board as well, to showcase what all they expect from the club on a regular basis, and not just in a fans forum every 6 weeks. So like I honestly don't have that much idea of how 50+1 works, if that's what you're asking, but overall I think fans do need to be represented in the board, at the board level.
Mina, what do you think? Because we would like it more frequent, and I feel like the Glazers obviously put all this in place to sort of, all this fans forum and fans board came out after the European Super League, and obviously now they're looking to sell. So what's your thoughts? I mean, 50+1, that was the big shout after that, and fans being on the board, or fans being basically the voice, because it is about the fans, it is about this. And what Atani is saying, and I know on your channel you were talking about, it's important to invest in the women's team. So I suppose it's having that voice all the time, and just sort of what do you think about that? Eldon saying it's never going to happen, the 50+1, and yeah, it might never happen, but I think that something needs to happen like that. The magic share, I don't know, but it has to be both teams. It has to be like the women's team and the men's team, and we should be able to engage with the fans, and not just the match going fans, the people who might watch on telly, because I think Tani might come out with an idea that's better than me. So what do you think?
I think before the whole idea of 50+1, that's great on paper, but realistically, I don't think that's ever going to happen in English football. Like, not just Manchester United, I just think applicable to any English clubs in the top flight, I don't think that's going to happen. It's nice in Germany and how it operates, but I think the football rulings over there is quite different. What I would like to see with the women's team, I would like to see more engagement with fans. I was at the Spurs game, I told you the other day, and great atmosphere. Honestly, like, one of my friends who's a Spurs fan said that she was envious of Manchester United because they got a core group of fans that follow the team across the country, and are always there, always the loudest people. And I know what they do with the men's team is that they regularly engage the players with the fan groups. So all the different fan groups for the men's team, content creators, whoever it may be, they I think it's every 3 months they get the opportunity to sit down with a player from the team, get to interview them, get to talk to them, and just have that personal relationship with the players. And I think that's really important, because one thing that you see all the time with the women's team and the players for Manchester United is they genuinely appreciate the fans. Like, they genuinely appreciate them, they love them, and every time when they're playing away, they come over and clap. They did their team huddle in front of the away team at the Spurs game, and I think with having that opportunity to genuinely build a relationship with players, on a professional level, but getting the opportunity to talk to them really creates that relationship between the club and the fans, which will make the players feel like the club cares because they're trying to, get them to build a relationship with the fans, and it also makes the fans feel like the club is listening to them and what they need. It's like, obviously, in terms of the manager, I know a lot of people don't like him, but managers come and go, but I think it's important to always build relationships with the players and let them know they're appreciated and they're loved, especially the players that don't even get the opportunity to play at the moment and are losing out their national team spots as a result of that. They need to know that the fans are supporting them and really want them to do well. So if that fan ownership is not an option, I think there's other ways to make fans involved that necessarily doesn't require us to have £1 billion in our pocket.
Yeah.
There's other things that can definitely be done, and I do think the club will because there's so much uncertainty with ownership. I think in time they will definitely realize it, that this is something that they could pinch into in terms of developing that relationship between the players and the fans.
Yeah, I mean, Vicky is saying, they don't even make it for journalists. So, it's hard for them. It's hard for I suppose, like you say, fans. And I feel like as the women's games grow, they do, like what you said, inviting content creators, inviting who, they can how can you say, censor it? They can, you're not allowed to ask this, you've got to ask this, all that stuff.
That's how it is pretty much all the time, where you kind of run questions by them. But it's like Vicky said, Glazers have kept fans at arm's length 100%. I absolutely agree with that, because the fans are so powerful. They literally, if we boycott any game, whether it's men or women's, that's money lost for the owners. So they need to keep that professional relationship between the owners and the fans. And as a result of that, you kind of lose that human touch between the two. And then you feel it later down the line.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like they do need to bring it, and they're trying to do things, but it's then, like you say, I think they keep it at an arm's length because they know that we know that they're not, like we're saying, things like negligence and all this kind of stuff. I mean, we've just seen Mary Earps. She's won the very, very first player of the month, and Marcus Rashford had his, and he had a trophy, and there's pictures. Whereas Mary Earps, it's just a short interview, and it's nice. The things that she says, she says, I feel so appreciated. They follow me, like you've just said, Mina, they're always loud, they're always there. They mean so much. But it's just that little thing, that little picture, that little smile, and I just feel like, these are the things, isn't it, that can make a big difference. And then the fans feel like, oh, they do care, we feel a bit more happier that, the women are up there on the same level. But yeah, I mean, I suppose to both of you now, just before we wrap up, we have seen talk of Man United previously talking about being self-sustainable, and I feel like everyone wants that in women's football. For example, we're talking about you talked before, didn't you, mean about Arsenal paying? I feel like there will be levels of that, but then there will be a time when we do need women's football to obviously. But we want it to be its own product, we want it to self-fund, or at least partially fund itself, be making the money, not always be making losses, be able to, we're talking about being top of the Deloitte League. This is something that we want to see. We want to see those numbers double from 6 to 12 or, maybe not, it won't be fully at the men's side, but we do want to see bigger numbers. And I think it'll come with the increase in ticket price, increase with the commercial and with broadcasting deals. We will see that. So, I mean, what do you think when you do hear that that's the reason why we can't necessarily do this and that now? Do you want it to be self-sustainable? Do you think that should be a thing? Or do you think it should just be pump all that money in and forget about it, and we'll just cover the losses kind of eventually? I suppose whoever wants to go, Mina, you go.
Yeah, I'll go first. I think the position that we're in now, the club needs investment support. They need financial support. Yes, the club generates high revenue in comparison to other women's clubs, but if you want to be the best of the best, you have to invest and that is applicable to any sport. It's applicable to really anything, even in your life. Like if you have a goal of like you want to lose weight or something, you have to invest in gym wear, you have to invest in a gym membership, and you'll see that you'll reap the benefits at a later date. It's not something that you'll see the benefits immediately. At the moment, United have to invest. Whether if they come out and the reason why they're not offering contract extensions, for example, is because financially they cannot afford it, then it's the responsibility of the owners to invest that money, and then eventually you would reap the benefits in the coming seasons. Additionally, come summer transfer window, signing players. If we have players leaving on a free, you need to buy players that are the same level in terms of the players that we've lost. You can't go out and sign an 18-year-old that has potential but is not there yet. If we lose Russo, we have to sign someone on the same technical level as her. That requires investment. It's funny because I don't feel like it's a lot of money in terms of what the women's game needs and what Manchester United women in particular need. But in the scope of women's football, it sounds like a lot. But as the game continues to grow, and I feel like soon we might see more people, more teams in the WSL. And as the WSL gets bigger and you're playing more games, we'll get the opportunity to have more games at Old Trafford. More games at when we go to the Emirates, go to Stamford Bridge, go to Spurs stadiums. We'll get the opportunity to play more games at the big stadiums, which will then generate a lot of more fans to come, and that generates a lot of revenue. But no matter what happens, the owners just have to invest and hope and pray that United win a WSL or Champions League in the next 3 to 4 years. And I think that's the only way that really any owner that comes in can kind of win me over, is if they come in and say, okay, because with Manchester, with the men's team, everyone knows the holes that need to be filled in terms of in the transfer window. The price tags in men's football, it's crazy. You're 100 million for a winger, 120, 150 for a striker, and United are happy to pay that because they're signing a world-class player that will improve their team. The same standard needs to be held in for the women's team. Like I said, if we lose owner, if we lose Russo, we have to go out and sign people of that same level, and pay them what they deserve, and hope that they come in and keep the team meshed. I'm hoping in the next 3 years, is optimistic, but I'm hoping in the next 3 years I see United win a WSL and I see them win a Champions League. That's me being optimistic with the hopes that we have a good owner. But if we don't have a good owner, we might be lingering in that 4th, 5th spot in the WSL for some time to come. But I'm hoping that's not going to be the case.
I think for me, in terms of what you just said, definitely a WSL within 3 years. Champions League maybe 5. Definitely.
I feel like this could even be the year. I don't know why. I feel like this could be the year. I feel like that Chelsea game's a big part.
Yeah. But definitely within 3 years, WSL. Maybe even next year, WSL, if the owner is, like you're saying, top notch. Thani, just I suppose what we said. What? How do you feel?
Yeah, like I agree with you. Like right now, we need that investment, we need that cash injection. But over a period of time, after everything's balanced out and everything's going well, I think we need to look at how you can make women's team sustainable as well. Because the men's team are sustainable. I think even under Glazers, we've been sustainable. It's just that the amount of dividends that they've taken out, and the way we have spent money, that is the wrong way. uh, that's why I think having a good owner, initially we need that cash injection because we need to enhance our infrastructure. We need to get, make sure that Old Trafford redevelopment is happening. We need to have a new women's team training ground. And after a few years, maybe we might move away from LSV into a new stadium as well. But right now, for the women's team, like Meena mentioned, we need, if Russo and Ona leave, we need a great replacement and not just someone who will be a prospect and after 2 3 years maybe they can get at the helm and start over. That's not what we need. We need someone who can come in like at the same time and have an instant impact basically. So right now I'd say I'd prefer if we sort out the contracts before the ownership happen, like the takeover happens, because I'll be at much more relieved. I'll be much more relieved because the World Cup is also coming. So, we might see a delay in deals happening. So we need to keep that in mind as well. And when World Cup is coming, the players' value will increase. And after Euros, we saw how Russo was performing. and after the World Cup, maybe her value increases so much that she says, "Okay, I'm going," even if we are offering her some kind of an enticing deal. So yeah, like in first, like initially investment has to be there, but after a period of 3-4 years, I'd say you should look at it from a perspective of making women's team sustainable.
And I think it can happen. I mean, Mina even talks about it. Me and you talk about it, don't we, Atanu? Our academy for the women is absolutely unreal. So I just feel like if that investment goes in there as well, and when we talk about academy, it's men, it's boys and girls, not just boys, you know. But it is, some of the talent that does come through there is unreal, and I do know they are pushing to make sure that talent is ready, because the step up is massive. More, I'd say, even from the 21s girls to the first team. But I do feel like the gap can be shortened, and there's ways that they're doing it and the ways that they're trying to promote it. But yeah, eventually that is Man United, isn't it? Having the young players coming through, and you know, so yeah. But I do feel like you said, we need that investment, not just in the first team, but it's the academy, the infrastructure, the training, and I think, you know, we will do well. But like you're saying, if we're going to lose two players, they need to be at the same level. And you know, I can't even bear thinking of losing. I mean, Honor's my favourite, so I can't even bear thinking of losing Honor. But yeah, Russo as well. That would be a nightmare. But listen, guys, thank you, Mina and Atanu. I just want to say, you know, big up everyone for watching. You've been constantly on the stream, and you know, your questions, I really appreciate it. I've seen what you've been saying, and you know, we try to get both the, you know, everyone's viewpoints out. And you know, just drop a like on this video, subscribe to the channel. We'll keep doing content about the women, and you know, have these guys back on if you like them. Just definitely hit us up. Atanu, tell the people where they can find you, and just sort of what you've got going on.
Yeah, like you can find me on this channel after the post-match interview, like post-match reaction, where I'll be sulking or I'll be enjoying, depends on how United plays.
Yeah.
And you can find me on Twitter as well on the same handle, Atanu_74.
No worries. Yeah, definitely check out Tana's videos. They're really good. I watch them sometimes on the way back from a game, so he's really good. He keeps me happy. Mina, tell the people where they can find you and what you've got coming up and stuff.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Mina Football, and on YouTube you can find me on United View, which looks at, you know, the men's team, but we're looking to do more content surrounding the women's team. Yeah, you can find me on Twitter just complaining about United half the time.
No, definitely, that's where I found you, and I loved it. So it's definitely something. Check out both these guys. But you know, just want to say thank you for them both to come on, because it's a really good show. And yeah, it was a good chat. And thank you everyone for watching. Much love, guys. Wow, see you soon.